Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. Happy holidays to all of you out there. I am particularly excited to be hosting this event tonight, not just because it's another event that we are hosting in cooperation with Crime Writers of Color, which is a group that we greatly support and we are very excited to be doing these events with, but also because this is our last virtual event of 2021. And for those of you who are regular watchers, you know that that is saying a lot. We've had a very event-packed year. So we'll be starting in-store events in January. I think we've got about 6 scheduled for January, which is slow in normal terms, but busy in COVID terms. And we'll have some virtual events coming back in January. Also, the next one starts January 13th. If you're looking for a last minute gift and your packages are stuck in transit somewhere, we have some cool items still available for the holidays, including our Murder by the Box subscriptions. You can find more about that on our website, murderbooks.com. There's a tab for Murder by the Book, Murder by the Box. We have a best of the month pick. We have Cozy Corner, and we have Crime Fiction Legends. And I can already say, without giving anything away, that one of the authors tonight will be one of our forthcoming best of the months. We've already decided. So that's going to be pretty fun. As always, if you want more information about the authors or their books, or if you're inclined to order, I'm going to put a link in the comments right now. And you can click there for more information. Do not be shy about questions. I'm going to try to feed them to our wonderful moderators, Alex and Kellye, as the event is going on. So hopefully we'll be able to get to any questions you have. But I'm going to go ahead and segue now to Alex and Kellye. I'm also going to put a link in the comments for more information about Crime Writers of Color if you're unfamiliar with the organization, so you can see kind of what they do and some of the members and their books. Okay, so we've got Alex and Kellye. Hi, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Of course.
Happy holidays.
Hi, Kellye.
You.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Good. Long time no chat.
For a whole 10 seconds.
Yeah, our chat has gone quiet.
I love when you guys do this because you're so good with each other, and it's fun to watch friends, and you're so good with the authors, and you actually plan and
raise the bar. She's raising the bar right now.
It gets better and better. So anyway,
No
I'm going to go
pressure.
away. No, none at all. I know it's going to be great. I'm going to go away behind the scenes and let you guys take over. Have fun.
Thanks, McKenna.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
So excited to end this year on a bang right now with this amazing authors. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is always a treat to have this event and, spotlight different writers. And but we should probably introduce ourselves, even though we know each other.
Do you want to go first? I heard you had some good news today, Alex.
Yeah, I did. I'm Alex Segura. I'm the author of Secret Identity, which comes out in March from Flatiron Books, which just got a starred review from Publishers Weekly, which was nice. Oh, look at you with your galley ready, and I have like a sisters over here.
we're just kind of galley show. But they called Alex's book outstanding, guys.
That was intense. That was great. Yeah, and you're not shy. You got some nice news yesterday or the day before yesterday.
I did. So I found out that my Hollywood Homicide, my first book, was named one of the top 10 cozy novels by The Guardian in the UK. And
well
also, I found out that my next book, which comes out in March, Like a Sister, is also got a starred review from Publishers Weekly, and they said that I raised up the bar. I think I upped my personal bar or something. So it was a really great review. So
which is it's a good compliment. Yeah, it's been a good week, and our books come out a week apart, so it'll be really exciting.
What is Secret Identity about? Tell the people.
Yes, Secret Identity is set in 1975 New York, and it tells the story of Carmen Valdez, who's a Cuban-American woman who moves from Miami to New York to work in comics. That's her dream. Her dad and her had this great bond reading comics, and she just can't get her foot in the door to write comics, so she gets a secretarial job at this kind of third-rate publisher called Triumph Comics. But she keeps pitching and she keeps trying to get her book published, her comic published, and her boss basically says, "Look, it's not going to work. I've got a line around the door of people that want to write for me, and it wouldn't look good for me to hire my secretary." So a colleague approaches her and says, "I have this idea. Will you co-write it with me? We'll give you credit eventually." And she does. She sees it as her only path to get published, and it becomes a huge hit. The legendary Lynx becomes the first female superhero that the company publishes. It becomes a hit, and then her colleague is murdered. And so she has to, nobody knows she's co-created this character, and so she has to basically take on this amateur sleuth gig to figure out what happened. And there's comic book sequences from the character's story in the novel. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. What about yours?
Alex always is so prepared and can just spew out how great his book is. I'm always like,
it's my secret publicist.
And I'm not a secret publicist. So Like a Sister is about a Black woman in New York City who learns that her estranged half-sister, who's a former reality star, has been found dead in the Bronx with cocaine on her. And she's actually the only person, my main character, who thinks that it's not an overdose. So the book is about her trying to find out what happened to her sister.
And it's based on it's kind of loosely based on.
It's based on a New York Daily News headline. So I'm just really excited. It's a departure for me because my Detective by Day books are a little bit, sillier, meant to be silly. This is a bit more serious, although it still has my sarcasm in it. So yeah. So I'm excited for it. I'm a little nervous for March, but I'm excited. So let's talk about the event, though. I got it. I got it.
Yeah. I mean, this came together initially last BoucherCon. We were going to do a reception for crime writers of color, and it was going to be structured like an in-person version of what you'll see tonight, where we'd have a few readers talking about their books. We'd interview them. They'd read from it. And as we all know, the BoucherCon was canceled for very, out of caution, which was very smart with COVID. And then Murder by the Book very kindly offered up a virtual stage for us, and we were able to do it. I think it was the night before the Anthony Awards that year. And then I guess it did well enough that they've been happy to have us every other month since. And we've themed out every session. And this one's going to be a look back at 2021. And there have been so many amazing books this year. So you're going to hear some great readings. You're going to hear us chat with these authors. And we're also going to get some book recos from each of them.
That's our phrase, recos.
Yeah, recos.
I think the great thing about this event is that we always can pick 6 amazing authors to spotlight.
Yeah.
And we have such a wide variety. There are indie authors here. There are debut authors here. There are established icons here today. So it's just so exciting that we can do this, and especially since when anyone who's read crime fiction knows that, 10 years ago, they weren't publishing a lot of people of color. So the fact that we can do this, and that's part of the reason why Crime Writers of Color was founded. I founded it in July of 2018 with Walter Mosley and Gigi Pondian, because we just wanted a space for people of color who write crime fiction to network with each other and support each other. And I love this event also today because most of the people here are volunteers. And so because of our volunteers, we have such amazing things. We have a Kings River Life column that Liz Wilkerson does. We have a website, which Robert Justice, who you'll meet, he created, and it has a books page, which Marla Bradeen, who you'll meet later, runs and just really made amazing. We have social media sites. It's always all at Crime WOC. We have a podcast that Robert does as well. We have conference liaisons that Alex and Mia Manansala, who you'll meet, do. We have a library liaison and a newsletter that Cate Holahan does. So we have all these really amazing things, and it's all because of volunteers. So it's just so great that we can spotlight some of them today. So.
Yeah, I mean, and Crime Writers of Color is such a supportive organization. It's really about just lifting each other up and making sure that, we're all supported. And there's such a wide spectrum. Well, somebody's at my apartment. There's such a wide spectrum.
We want to see his son. We're hoping his son.
Yeah, he might barge in. Yeah, he's a much more dramatic than his father. But it's such a wide spectrum. Like you said, it's self-published authors, it's mid-list authors, it's new authors, it's legendary authors, and we all are supporting each other and helping each other kind of in this journey, which has been really, it's gotten me through this challenging time just with the pandemic and everything, and having this community. So yeah, I guess we should get started, right?
Let's get some reading going.
First up is Mia.
I'm ready somewhat.
Yes, look at that.
I can't remember.
Mia has the poster behind her.
Her head's covering it, so this has to do that.
Can you hear us, Mia?
Oh, there we go. Okay. It kept
Oh,
saying that I
there.
was still backstage. Sorry.
No, you're live.
You're
You're
not.
on
You're
stage.
live, Mama. Here you are. We see you.
All right. Yeah. So
And the
apologies in
lipstick
advance
looks
to
amazing.
everyone. Thank you. My internet is like awful right now. So Kellye and Alex keep cutting out. So if I like drop out during
You
my
have
reading,
not, so just keep going. Just
You're
go
good.
for it.
so if they ask me something and I'm just like, I'm sorry.
No worries.
All right then. So
So
jump.
what are you
into the
reading? Yeah,
What are you reading?
The one single thing I've read in my entire life. My debut, Arsenic and a Double, which came out earlier this year in May.
One of the biggest debuts of the year.
Oh,
Yeah,
unreal. No.
yeah. So she just goes, it's unreal. Yes, claim that.
All right. So just jump in.
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So I'll be reading from the first chapter. It's a cozy mystery, so it's going to be light and humorous. My name is Lila Macapagal, and my life has become a rom-com cliche. Not many romantic comedies feature an Asian American lead or dead bodies, but more on that later. But all the hallmarks are there. Girl from an improbably named small town in the Midwest moves to the big city to make a name for herself and find love. Check. Girl achieves these things, only for the world to come crashing down when she walks in on her fiancé, getting down and dirty with their next door neighbors. Yes, plural. Double check. Girl then moves back home in disgrace and finds work reinvigorating her aunt's failing business. Well, now we're up to a hat trick of cliches. And to put the cherry on top, in the trope of all tropes, I even reconnected with my high school sweetheart after moving back to town and discovered the true meaning of Christmas. Okay, so that last part is a joke, but I really did run into my high school sweetheart, Derek Winter, my first love. Too bad he'd aged into a ridiculous jerk with a puffed up sense of importance and weird vendetta against my family. Pretty much tried to shut down my aunt's restaurant on a weekly basis. Odd behavior from the guy who'd wanted to marry me right after high school, but what can I say? I had exceptionally bad taste when I was younger. You're dumb when you're 15 and hopped up on hormones. Heck, I'm 25 and still make bad decisions based on those same dumb hormones. Hence my working at my Tita Rosie's restaurant rather than running my own cafe, which is what I'd been going to school for before I found out Sam was a cheating scumbag. That was right around the time my aunt sent me a distress signal, and here we are. So instead of grinding my own coffee beans or brewing the delightful loose leaf teas I'd sourced for my dream cafe in Chicago, I now spent every morning preparing mugs of Copico 3-in-1 in my hometown of Shady Palms, Illinois, over 2 hours outside the city. The morning clientele at my Tita's restaurant always included a bevy of gossiping aunties, none as loud or nosy as the group of 50-something-year-old women I privately referred to as the calendar crew. Their names were April, May, and June. They weren't related, but all three of them were completely interchangeable, down to their bad perms, love of floral patterns, and need to provide running commentary on my life. It was their due. After all, they were my godmothers. Yes, plural. They bore the important title Ninang and were my late mother's best friends. They loved and cared about me in their own infuriating way. I brought over their morning plate of pandesal, and they descended like a pack of locusts upon the dish of lightly sweetened Filipino bread, spreading the warm rolls of butter and dipping them in their coffee or drizzling them with condensed milk. And like locusts, once they were done devouring one thing, they moved as a pack onto their next victim, me. Lila, why everything you wear always dark? You look like a bruja. And your hair's always in that ponytail and hat. Not sexy. Ay, nako, what is this? You get bigger every time I see you. This last statement, accompanied by a firm pinch of my arm fat, was from Ninang April, who always had to have the final say. April always was the cruelest month. I was used to these digs against my appearance. It was how older Asians showed affection. And I could ignore their first two comments. While being told you look like a witch would bother most people, I considered it a compliment. I love natural remedies, dark color palettes, and made bewitchingly delicious baked goods. So I'd learned to lean into the bruja image. Everyone needed a personal brand. As for the baseball caps, not like I wore as a fashion accessory. I worked in food service and my family were sticklers for hygiene. It was either a cap or a hairnet, which thanks but no thanks. My weight gain, however, was a sore topic. Bad enough that I'd been eating my feelings and couldn't fit into my old clothes anymore. I didn't need them and their fat-phobic comments rubbing it in. Then again, I hadn't been home in almost 3 years. The recovering Catholic in me recognized that these barbs were just the beginning of the penance they would make me pay. I waved my hand dismissively. I Ninang April. I'm just adjusting to being back home. You know everybody eats well when Tita Rosie is around. The calendar crew all nodded as they helped themselves to the coconut jam and quesang pute or salty white cheese that I'd added to the table. Why do you think we come here all the time? The decor? Ninang May asked, gesturing around at the scuffed tables, mismatched silverware, and appliances from the 80s. Nobody cooks better than your Tita Rosie. A loud ha was the response to Ninang May's comment. We all turned toward the source of this rudeness, and my stomach clenched as I locked eyes with the only man I hated as much as my ex-fiancé, Derek Winter. Derek sipped at a travel cup of coffee and tapped his foot in a cartoonish show of impatience. Hey, could I get a table already? My godmothers all clicked their tongues in unison and began whispering furiously in Tagalog as I approached him. I thought I made it very clear you weren't welcome here. His eyes crinkled in amusement, something I used to find so attractive, but his charms were wasted on me now. Now, Lila, is that any way to treat a customer? The man behind him asked. My eyes snapped to the newcomer. I hadn't realized Derek was dining with a guest. He's always eaten alone before. Supposedly, dining solo made it easier for him to focus on the food so he could write his reviews. I just figured he didn't have any friends. And even more surprising than the idea of someone willingly spending time with Derek was his companion. What was Derek doing with our landlord? Mr. Long, what are you doing here? What, a man can't have brunch with his son? He clapped Derek on the shoulder, who flinched. I've owned this plaza for a while now, but I've never tried your aunt's cooking. You missed another payment. So after seeing some of Derek's reviews, I figured I'd come see what the problem was, see if I could offer any assistance. I narrowed my eyes at Derek. The problem, huh? And since when were these two related? You'd think he would have told me his mom had remarried when we first saw each other again, but I guess this was just another of his little omissions. Derek met my glare with a smirk and gestured toward his favorite table near the window. Honestly, how is it even possible to have a favorite table at a restaurant you allegedly despised? Of course, make yourselves comfortable. I smiled sweetly and added, but no outside food or drinks allowed. Derek rolled his eyes and started toward the door, but Mr. Long intercepted him. Here, son, why don't you finish your drink and I'll put the thermos in the car. I gotta call your mom real quick, so go ahead and order for me. I don't know what any of this food is anyway. I waited till Derek gulped down his drink and handed over the travel cup before hurrying to the kitchen to talk to my aunt and grandmother. Those two coming here together, especially after our latest warning about being behind on rent again, could only mean one thing for us. Trouble. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yes, I was laughing even though I've read it before.
I know.
Still funny.
Still funny, yeah. How's the year been for you, Mia, with like all the success and all the acclaim and the response? It's been huge from our perspective, but I'd love to hear about what it's been like for you as an author.
Let us
Like
know,
absolutely
please.
wild. I don't know. It feels so weird. Either when you say success, I don't know. I think there's that thing where you cringe. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's but like I've been very.
Where's the lie?
It's definitely been like a bigger response than I was planning, honestly. I've just been really, really happy that it's been spreading, that I've been getting, that's been connecting with the people I've been wanting it to reach. So
Where'd you get the idea from? I know, but tell me.
well, I was talking one day with someone, you may have heard of them, Kellye, Garrett. And we were just joking about a lot of the contemporary cozies we were reading at the time. Kind of had a lot of things in common with like rom-coms, with like, romantic comedy movies that we've been watching. And, we made a joke that, oh my God, the cozies are just rom-coms with dead bodies. And so one day I was on the train on my way to work when the first line of the book popped into my head, which is, it's been the same. Like I started this story back in 2018. The first two lines have been the same since then, which was, my name is Lila Macapagal and my life has become a rom-com cliche. So that first line with the character's name, because people are like, how do you come up with character names? I'm like,
it showed up. Yeah.
I do not. I put zero thought. If like you think that these names have meaning, no, they do not. So I wrote that down in my phone app because I'm like, this is a story. Like I need to where this goes. And so like I wrote that first line, and then the second line came, which was again like not many rom-coms have Asian American leads or dead bodies. And I was like, I know what this story is. And so I just kind of shaped it from there.
And every other book has been just as easy to write, correct?
Yeah, the second one was even easier.
Man, you like people have warned me about second book syndrome. Like the idea that the second book is, if not the hardest, it's infinitely harder than the first. And
I feel like each one's hard in its own way, but the second one is uniquely hard.
You know why? Because if it's under contract, you're like this, because books always suck when you first start, but you're like, this is going to be on bookshelves in like a year. And like, people are going to be on Goodreads giving it like 1 star. Like, and so that's why I freaked out. And I still.
Yeah. The first book is like this theoretical exercise. Like you could stop and no one would know.
And you can take all the time you want to make it as good as you can. Whereas the other one, they're like, there's a deadline. It's done when it's that deadline says it's done. And you're just like, oh, I'm so sorry, editors. And you just use this like thing that's not quite a book yet at them. And you hope you can make it better.
So tell us about it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's your book reco?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that last one.
The book reco. What's your recommendation?
Oh, my recommendation.
You call it reco because that's what Alex calls it.
Is that what all the cool kids call it?
Yeah, it's a new hit slang.
Alex, a cool
I'm just not on that lingo. So
why say recommend when you can just say reco?
Social media hashtag reco.
Yeah, hashtag reco.
So a fellow debut. That's also
so good.
a crime writer
so
of color. She was also in the a Berkeley debut with me. We were the same publisher. So My Sweet Girl by Amanda Jayatisa. It takes place in the US and in Sri Lanka so it kind of goes back and forth in the past. If you like unreliable narrators, if you hear the phrase unlikable female character and like scoff and roll your eyes, this is the book. This is excellent. It just keeps you guessing. There's so much voice in it. In a year where I was reading almost like solely like happy things and romance, like this still somehow managed to pull me in. I was like, oh, this is not happy, but I cannot stop turning these pages. I loved it.
That's good.
Thank you for coming and joining us and kicking us off. You set the bar pretty high, Robert Justice.
Wait, but before you go, Mia, tell us about your next book.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So book 2 comes out February 8th. Yes, February 8th. It's titled Homicide in Halo Halo, and it follows my protagonist, Lila Macapagal, as she has to deal with a murder at the local beauty pageant.
Oh, I love beauty pageant. Like, is it like Miss USA level, or is it more like, I don't know, toddlers and tiaras level?
Well, because like my idea was like, if there are two things that the Philippines and small towns have in common, it's their love of beauty pageants. Like a Filipino will go all out for any beauty pageant. It does not matter what it is. So I kind of wanted to explore that within my little Midwestern setting.
Nice.
Thanks for joining us, Mia.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Y'all.
Stick around, please.
All right, and Robert Justice is next.
The Robert Justice.
The one and only, the soulful sounds of Robert Justice.
See him. He does look like a DJ. He's about to do some like Quiet Storm. Take the request.
Quiet Storm. How's it going?
Life is good, and I had to.
I told you.
I had to come here from the Crime Writers of Color podcast studios. There's no other way to represent. So.
Yeah, I mean,
How many episodes have you done so far?
I think we're around 50. I haven't counted them up lately. Yeah, we got to be coming up there. So
that's amazing.
It's been a joy.
Thank you for that idea. It was your idea, and you've just run with it. So
it's been so good, so great, and it was so neat to hear you being interviewed.
Yeah, the last episode is.
Rachel Housel Hall did a great job. Yeah.
So, what are you going to read from?
I'm going to read from my debut. They Can't Take Your Name.
Well done. Good marketing.
Look at that cover.
Wait, hold on.
There it is. It's a great cover, and it's a great book.
I agree.
All right.
So this chapter comes early on in the book. It is, we have Langston Brown, who is our victim in the book. He is in prison for a crime he did not commit, the Mother's Day massacre. And what we discover in this chapter is his life before he was on death row. And this is also the chapter where the title of the book comes from, They Can't Take Your Name. Let's get you elevated, Langston would say, even to grown men as he leg pumped the lever on the barber chair to avoid stooping while he cut their hair. Seats were open for the other barbers, but men waited in line for Langston. Some even stayed when their turn in the chair was over so as not to miss out on what he might say to the next occupant. Before he was a convict, Langston cut hair, among other things, at one of 5 Point's many barbershops. The painted windows would cast shadows through the shop's shotgun floor plan with its mismatched seating on the right facing the barbers with the wall-length mirror on the left. Jet magazine beauties plastered the wall. The smell of blue sanitizer deodorized the room. Langston was a football-statured man who led East High School to 3 basketball championships in his younger years. He wore his usual white t-shirt, dark blue Dickies, steel-toed boots, oil and paint-stained, from his second job as an on-call maintenance man. His bald head reflected the rotation of the ceiling fan. His thick beard was as dark as the black ink used for the Denver Post. Welcome back, young man. His stature was matched only by the bass in his voice. So the girl's chasing you yet? The teen blushed, turning bronze. Langston's interrogation continued. How are your grades? They're good. His mother's frown told the real truth. Langston took note. You know, I can tell by the size of your head that you're smart. Big brains and big biceps. Now that's a lethal combination. The young man smiled. What are they teaching you over there at the high school? Anything about our people? What about Malcolm, Martin, and the movement? He glanced at the boy's mom, who pretended that she was reading a magazine while she flashed her ringless ring finger in the direction of the eligible men in the room. Langston felt for the single mothers in the neighborhood who worked all day, tried to raise their children with no help at home. We're barely making it, the two of us, he once told his wife, Elizabeth. I don't know how they do it. He understood why they brought their sons to the shop. To him. As Langston pulled the pick through the young client's coils, he began the history lesson. Young blood, let me tell you something. When I was a boy in Philly, I watched as my father and uncles stopped looking for work and started finding trouble in the bottom of a bottle. I'd see them out in the corner, but barely at home. They were good men, but then life happened to them. Langston brushed and oiled his clippers. You feel me, young blood? Life is hard out there for us. The young man listened as Langston began to cut. Back then, I admired Martin, but it was Malcolm I followed. Martin understood the Bible in Birmingham, but he didn't realize he had to reread his Bible if he was going to come up north. That's why we needed Malcolm, too. Don't ever forget that. We need each other. When did you leave Philly? The young man asked. I left as soon as I was old enough to hitch, beg, and hustle. Spent a few years in Chicago, then work dried up, decided to keep going west. I settled down in Denver because I found a woman who settled for me. Langston stomped his foot and the other barbers laughed on cue. When you find a good woman, make sure you love her, treat her like the queen she is. If you do, she'll ride with you through thick and thin. And let me tell you a secret. Langston lowered his voice. The boy's mom peeked over the top of her magazine. A good woman will be your strength. So treat her like you can't survive without her, because that's the truth anyways. As he finished the young man's lines and applied alcohol along the edges, Langston shifted to a soft, father-like tone. Listen here, my man. We need to love us more than we love ourselves. Too many of us are blind to what's going on out there where the white folk live. We all counted on you to make something of yourself so you can make us all better. Langston once told his wife, when they get in my chair, I want them to experience hope and history. I want to free their minds, Elizabeth. I understand them because I can still remember what it was like to want to look good so you could get a job and a woman and a house and some kids. He lowered the chair, turned it toward the mirror in one motion, putting his giant hands on the young man's shoulders. Son, remember this. All you got is your name. Langston now stooped down by his ear. No matter how hard they try, they can't take your name. The pep talk continued, even after the boy's mom paid and made their way to the door. See you later, young blood. Go make a name for yourself. The name Langston Brown meant love of his wife and their baby girl, Liza. It meant respect for the community and his people. Soon after Mother's Day, all that changed.
That was fantastic.
Everyone's decided in the chat that you're the new host of this, and that Alex and I need to leave.
Yeah, so I'll just pass the baton to you, and thanks everyone for having us. It's real.
Just listen to Robert for the next 5 years. It's fine.
You're better off. That was fantastic, Robert, and I mean the book is great, and it's such a powerful debut. So, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the idea and how it came together for you?
One thing I wanted to do was just play off of the poetry of Langston Hughes, where he asked the question, what happens to a dream deferred? And so we have 3 people in this story who have deferred dreams. And the question is, what's going to happen to them? Will they sag like a heavy load, or will they just explode?
But you started it 5 years ago. You said on the Primaries of Color podcast.
Yeah, I mean the impetus was my wife had cancer, and I didn't know what to do with those feelings, so I started writing a story that ended up becoming this crime novel. And so it's about a man who is trying to survive the loss of his wife, and in the process, he's going to try and help a daughter save her dad from from death row.
Has your wife read the book?
She has. She's read it a couple times in different stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
great.
It.
Yeah.
How have you felt about the? I mean, the response has been fantastic from what we can tell. I mean, the Washington Post review was great. But what's it been like for you as a debut author?
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, it's been about a week, and
It's been a week.
Yeah, still a lot of stuff has happened in a couple days.
yeah, but it's been fun. Yeah. But you're right about that. You're right about that sophomore slump. I'm been trying to work on this next book for 2 years now.
Yeah, what's the idea? Can you tell us? Can you give us a hint?
Yeah, I'm going to flip. If this first book was What Happens to a Dream Deferred, the next one's going to be What Happens When Dreams Become Our Nightmares. And it's going to be about a man who was wrongfully convicted because a woman had a dream that he was the perpetrator. And so her dream became his nightmare.
Very
That
timely.
sounds like that
Lucky.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast, which we've mentioned, but what's it been like? Just you're actually one of my favorite interviews. We've done a couple episodes where I've had the pleasure of hopping on, but what I love is it's so clear that you do the homework, you do the research, you read the book. Your questions are always so thoughtful and insightful, and it's really just a pleasure to listen or to participate. And I'd love to hear like your process a little bit.
Well, I read a book.
Like, I read the book.
I read the book.
read 1 or 2 books by every person that comes on the podcast, and I just love getting to meet everybody in this group. I mean, my goal is to read 1 book by every author in Crime Writers of Color. That would put me at least at 300. But just to be able to soak in just these amazing stories and these amazing writers, so it's been a joy for me to be able to have a front row seat to learn and to glean from these authors.
And we get like publicists will email the Crime Writers of Color. Email like you're like they're in the group. They can just message Robert themselves. But sure, I'll pass it along.
Yeah, but it's become a thing. It's people are noticing.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch it grow.
Really great.
Time for the reco.
Yeah, what's the reco?
I'm gonna go with 2. I'm gonna go with Under Color of Law by Aaron Philip Clarke. I read that a couple of months ago. Absolutely loved it, and so I'd recommend that highly. But then I am right now in the middle of
Oh yes,
Clark, so good.
Right here, Clark and Division by Naomi Hirihara, and I'm absolutely loving it.
She's another legend.
Yeah.
We have some amazing. That's what I love. Like I said about our group is that we have people like Naomi, and then people debut. It's just an amazing group. So
it's been good. Well done, Kellye.
Thanks so much, Robert. Yeah, great work, Kellye. High five.
It's all me. I did everything myself.
You did it. Who's next? Who have we got in the next?
We have someone who goes by 2 names.
Mm-hmm.
You may know her as Paige Sleuth. We know her in the group as Marla Bradeen. And Marla is literally, I think, probably one of the most helpful volunteers we have, where I think we would not have a group without Marla. So Marla, thank you for being here.
How's it going?
I think you're giving me too much credit, but
No, never that. So although you wanted Robert to be the new host, so you are a bit of a traitor, but it's okay.
We won't take it too personally.
Me and Alex. So
oh no, I want Robert to read my book too. So if he wants to do the reading for me, that's fine.
What are you going to read from tonight?
I'm going to read from my short story in the Festive Mayhem 2 anthology. The title is Nefarious New Year. So it's a cozy mystery.
Great.
Nice. And so for those who don't know, I'm just going to say Festive Mayhem is actually the second anthology that some of our indie authors have created. So it's just really cool to see this book and because I get to like watch their posts and see Marla and everyone like them put it together. So
tap into the process.
Yeah, I'm learning just by like being nosy and watching them.
We had a lot of fun with it, so it's
awesome.
And then I got to meet some of the members a little, which is always nice.
It is. They're great people. So let's read. I want to hear it.
Yeah, go ahead, and we'll question you after.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick up where my heroine, whose name is Imogene, is throwing a New Year's Eve party, and she's telling her friend Kenny about her New Year's resolution to become a vegetarian when she starts to suspect that one of the other guests has been poisoned. So this part opens with Imogene apologizing to her cat Cleopatra for all of the people in the house. So Imogene was about to plant a placating kiss on the top of Cleopatra's head when something bumped into her from behind. The cat vaulted out of Imogene's arms and darted behind the sofa with a hiss. Imogene wheeled around to see who was responsible for the interruption. Josh Barnaby loomed in front of her. A handsome, dark-haired man in his early 30s, Josh and his wife, Nicole, lived 3 doors away. Before today, Imogene's social interactions with the man had been limited to a few short sidewalk conversations, but she couldn't recall him so unsteady on his feet. Kenny grabbed Josh's elbow as he swayed from side to side. "Whoa there, buddy. You're looking like a reed caught in a Cat 5 hurricane. Hitting the bottle a wee bit too hard tonight, are we?" "No bottles," Josh said. "Gave all that up. Beer, whiskey, the whole lot, along with flirting." He winked at Imogene, promptly flustered step backward. Was he hitting on her, or had she misconstrued the gesture? Perhaps his eye had merely twitched. "Making changes for the new year," Josh added. Kenny threw his hands up. "Am I the only one who thinks New Year's resolutions shouldn't start until January?" Josh made a clumsy grab for Kenny's arm. "Feel awful dizzy." Kenny caught Josh beneath the armpits as Josh flopped against his chest. "What's gotten into you, man?" "Must be the Jell-O," Josh said. "Good stuff. Ate too much. Ate it all." "Jell-O?" Imogene echoed. "In the kitchen." Cleopatra poked her nose out from behind the couch. She gave Josh a slow once-over, not looking impressed by what she saw. Josh closed his eyes. "Want to lie down?" Imogene looked at Kenny. "Take him upstairs to my guest bedroom." "All righty," Kenny replied. Kenny propped Josh back on his feet, and Imogene took hold of his other arm. Together they led him across the living room. He leaned so heavily against her grip that Imogene feared they both might lose their balance and tumble down the stairs. She breathed a huge sigh of relief when they made it to the guest room without incident. A queen-size bed overlaid with a pink comforter featuring an array of black cats in various play poses occupied the center of the room. As soon as Josh collapsed atop the frolicking two-dimensional cats, Cleopatra was right there on the mattress. The foul expression on her face made it quite clear she was not to see this intruder occupying the bed she often used for her afternoon naps. Josh, however, was too out of it to register the cat's death stare. "You really haven't been drinking tonight?" Imogene asked him. He lifted his head but seemed unable to focus his eyes. "'Sright. And you mentioned Jell-O. Did you get that here?" "'Sright," he said again. Imogene thought about the dessert she had laid out tonight. Chewy chocolate brownies, lemon meringue bars, bite-sized fruit tarts, and freshly baked cookies. She couldn't think of a single item that even remotely resembled Jell-O. "Good stuff," Josh said. "Yes, you mentioned that." Imogene scrutinized him. "Is it possible you ate that at your house before you came over tonight?" Josh moved his head from side to side twice in the negative before he appeared to pass out cold. Cleopatra's evil look intensified as though she hoped to transport him back to his place by pure hostility alone. Imogene's mind whirled. Everything about Josh's behavior suggested he was wasted, and yet he denied it. But what other explanation could there be for his current state? The answer came to her so quickly she gasped at her. "You all right?" "Kenny, what if Josh is telling the truth about being sober? Are we looking at the same guy? Because the one in front of me could give the proverbial skunk a hard run for his money." "Did you smell alcohol on his breath when we were helping him upstairs?" Kenny's brow furrowed. "Well, no. Neither did I. So maybe threw a few breath mints before he toppled into my arms like a fragile southern belle in need of some smelling salts. Or what if he was being honest and he really isn't drunk?" Imogene's heart beat so fast she felt it might break through her ribcage. "Kenny, what if he's been poisoned?" So that's the end of the scene, and then it kind of goes on where Jell-O is actually not vegetarian, and since Imogene is a vegetarian, that's kind of what clued her in as to something with.
No, they have to read it. Don't
Yeah,
give,
no
don't
spoilers.
give it all away. They're gonna buy that book.
Yeah.
Well, this is like the very next paragraph, so
Okay.
I'm not really giving anything away.
They still got to buy the book. They buy it for the one paragraph. That was great.
That was
Yeah,
great.
and Festa Mayhem 2 is a limited edition anthology, so it's only going to be available through the end of January. And I don't have a fancy paperback book to hold up like everyone else. I don't know if anyone can see this, but this is
I have
what
it
it looks
under my
like.
Kindle too.
So if you go to your retailer, you can get it there. And I don't know,
Who
my
else is
camera
it?
seems to be cutting out.
So
Yeah,
how
I
does
have
that
it.
work? It's like a limited time, limited availability book.
Yeah, we're just putting it out for the holiday season. So at the end of January, then everyone's can do what they want with their stories. So, and I self-publish it, so it'll still be available. But the other 6 authors are free to do whatever they want with theirs. So whether or not they'll be available is is kind of up to them.
That's great. That's great. It's like a
Clever.
limited edition release. Oh, nice. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Well done. You're also in the Midnight Hour anthology. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was another project from Crime Writers of Color, and that one there's I believe, who are included. And so we were given a theme to write about, like the Midnight Hour, and Abby Van Diver is the editor, and she was in charge of the whole project. So we, Alex, are you in there? Are you
I'm not.
in that one too?
No, I'm
No.
a big fan of the book, but I'm not in it.
He's not in it. He's not cool enough. He's not cool enough to be in it.
I think I
Yeah,
just
so
couldn't
that-
get my story in on time, honestly.
Yeah.
You're kind of busy.
I'm
Alex.
self-published for the most part, but the Midnight Hour is my only traditionally published story. So that was exciting.
Yeah, it's a great collection. And Kellye, you wanted to talk a little bit about how essential Marla is to the whole org.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking for the cover.
It's okay.
I think I mentioned it earlier. She just was like the first person to be like, let's have a book site. So if you go to crimewritersofcolor.com and go to the books page, Marla's the one who did that. And she also has helped with the events page, the books page. I feel like everything. Like I've never actually done anything on the website. It's all like Marla and Gigi.
It's an amazing website. It's such a resource.
I don't know how to do anything on that website.
What is a website?
I'm like, I don't understand. So yeah. And then you also do the Cozy Cat
I remember,
series, right?
Yeah, so my Cozy Cat Caper Mystery series that I write as Paige Sleuth is my main series. And this short story is kind of a spin-off of that. Siddle is actually a secondary character in the main series. So in the short story, she's the heroine. So
it's in the expanded
there's
Cozy
always a
Cat
cat
universe.
You gotta have a cat. Cozy.
So I've got
Cozy
cats
without
who
a
gotta
cat?
do, antics. Sometimes they look up clues. And I actually have some cats here. I was hoping.
I told you. I said it. I think there's a surprise guest.
Oh, of course I made it about myself. I was like,
Yeah,
my
I was
kids
like,
are sleeping.
I know there's a surprise guest, and now my son's not here. I'm like, oh, Marla has a surprise guest.
Oh, yeah.
So nice.
Yeah, at some point my cat Obi said something.
Let's see him. Let's
but,
see him. You can't just
he was
tease him.
actually just talking to one of the other cats. I don't know if you can see her.
Oh.
Oh, how cute. Last time we had Ed's dog, and now we have a cat. You guys come for the breeding, stay for the animals.
Exactly. So what's your
Obi,
reco?
Obi's actually over in the corner.
There you go.
The black cat back there.
Oh, I see it.
Like
But he's the chatty one, so if you heard meowing, that was him.
Okay.
Okay, that was what I heard.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, what's your reco?
So I'm going to recommend a book by my fellow indie author Anne Artan, and it's A-N-N-E, and then last name is T-A-N. And her 2021 release was Just a Lucky Break-In, which is the second story in her Chinese cozy mystery series starring Lucy Fong. So she writes fun cozy mysteries as well, and I've actually met her in person. So she's one of the few authors I met in person. So
that's great. Well, thanks for doing the reading. This was awesome. It's so great to have you as a part of the event.
Yay! Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thanks. Next.
All right, Kellye's in the limelight, and now we're even.
Who's next, Alex?
Next up, we have Cate Richards.
Or we call her Kia.
Yeah, we call her Kia. We're all business here. Yeah.
We're super professional.
How's it going?
It's great. Kia or Cate, either one works.
I know you as Kia, so I'm gonna call you Kia.
Yeah, and I write under both names. So
keep
that
people
would
on
be
their
hard
feet.
to keep track of. Like that's why I couldn't do a pen name because I'd be like, wait, who are you talking to? Like who's KG?
Yeah,
Like
who's Bill?
I'm used to both now. So
okay, so if I screamed out KD across the room, you would
I would probably a lot of people would look.
Yeah,
they'd be like, who's
ears
that
will
crazy
perk up
black
a little
girl
bit at least.
yelling?
Right.
What are you going to read for us?
I am going to read from the third book in the my West Investigation series, Christmas Data Breach.
That's a great cover.
Yeah, everybody loves the colors. They're always like
No, the guy. I mean,
great. I was gonna say all women.
I like it too.
Looking there on the cover.
Let's not just assume.
Yeah.
If that's enough for me to buy a book anyway.
All right.
All right, here we go. Maya Roshan had a bounce in her step as she strolled the short distance back to her laboratory. She sipped her gingerbread latte, enjoying the Christmas lights draping the topiaries in the office complex. The starry Sunday night wasn't the reason for her upbeat mood, however. She'd spent the last several weeks subjecting the final part of her cancer treatment to rigorous testing. And at every turn, it had responded as she'd hoped. After years of study and research, it finally looked like she'd successfully developed a treatment for the rare brain cancer that had stolen her mother's life. The building that housed her laboratory sat at the back of the complex and was smaller than the other buildings. Dentist Timothy Ott's office took up the first floor. Trigen Labs, which she helmed, occupied the second. She headed around the building to the side entrance. There was no security guard on duty on the weekends, and tenants had to use the side entrance to get in. She swiped her building identification, which doubled as a key card, over the security panel and headed down the hall to the elevators. A man's deep baritone voice came from just around the corner, causing her to pause. Tenants had 24-hour access to the building, but she couldn't remember Dr. Ott ever coming in on a Sunday night. Nor did the voice she heard sound at all like the tenor of the kindly 63-year-old dentist she knew. No, the tone of this man's voice was chilling. A shiver snaked down her spine. There was no doubt in her mind that he was dangerous. Definitely not Dr. Ott. Curiosity demanded she peek around the wall, but fear rooted her to the spot. "I've looked all over for her," the man said. "Her car is not in the lot. Her car is in the lot, but she's not here." Maya glanced back at the door through which she'd entered. Entry from the outside was granted electronically, but the door was opened from the inside by a metal bar that clanked loudly when pushed. She doubted she could make it out the door and away from the building without being heard. "I've already started a fire in the lab," the man continued. "I need to get out of here before this place goes up in flames." Heavy footsteps moved away from where she stood. She waited until she couldn't hear them any longer, then bolted for the door to the stairwell, the laptop in her oversized messenger bag bouncing against her hip. There was years of work in that lab. Not just hers, but her mentor's life work too. She couldn't just let it all go up in flames. The lab took up most of the second floor, but she'd carved out space for a reception area and offices for herself and her assistant. On the landing, she stopped to dial 911 and stated her emergency, then ignored the dispatcher's order to get out of the building immediately. She burst out of the stairwell into the office's small reception area. Nothing there seemed out of place, so she kept moving toward the lab and the offices. She heard the crackle of flames as she approached her office door. Fire leapt from the trash can and climbed the inexpensive cloth blinds she'd installed to brighten up the sterile space. She grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall outside her office and sprayed. The flames died just as a thunderous boom shook the floor. She ran back to the door of her office. Fire had shattered the glass separating her lab from the interior hallway. Shards littered the tile floor. No way would her fire extinguisher stand up against this much larger inferno. Flames already raced along the tabletops and up the walls. The square ceiling tiles curled as they melted, falling from the ceiling. Smoke filled the hall quickly. She tucked her mouth and nose into the crook of her elbow and stepped away coughing. There was nothing she could do to save the lab, and she had to get out of there now. Maya turned and hurried back down the stairs. Outside, she could hear the distant blare of fire engines. She looked back at the lab where she'd worked 80-hour weeks for the last decade. She watched as the inferno moved in a cruel dance on the other side of the second floor windows, devouring her life's work.
That was juicy.
Awesome.
I was intrigued.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Kia actually does our internal newsletter, which was Gigi's Pondia's idea to just kind of do a monthly catch up for people, and she does such an amazing a job with it. So
yeah, it's great for me to catch up too because I miss a lot of stuff until I sit down to do
we have a very active group, over 300
very vocal.
We're very active. I'm very excited about, but you can miss some things sometimes.
Yeah.
What's it been like working on that? You know, what do you find that you're learning a lot about just the different members, and has it been fun?
And meeting a lot of them too. There's a lot of emails that go back and forth just to me.
About, just to you.
Yeah, the things people forgot to put in. And can we get this in? Can we do that really quick? For next month. It's great to meet people, and a lot of people send the private messages just to say thank you. So we.
That's great. I'm glad people use the private messages. I sometimes think they.
So it's especially for me. I'm an introvert, so it's a great way to meet people and have something to talk about.
You're like a linchpin to
oh yeah, for real.
Kellye, can you talk a little bit about how you both met and the origin story of?
Yes, this is so amazing because Kia, you submitted to me and Mia for Pitch Wars, right?
I did, but that's actually not how we met.
We met at Writer's Digest. I remember I met you in person there.
We met before then. We met at the
I was there too.
Malice Domestic. I know I shouldn't tell you. I was kind of stalking you because you don't remember. I was like the crazed fan that you were like trying to block out.
Well, thanks, Kia.
I had just read your first Detective by Day novel, like literally like the day before. So that's why I recognized you right away. So like I kept walking back and forth by you because I'm like trying to build up the courage to say something.
That's so weird. That's how we met too.
And you finally just grabbed me and you were like, "Do you write?" I guess you were like, "Who is this chick? I gotta find out if she's like planning to kill me."
No, first of all, I did not know that. It seems like I always wanted to tell this story so you can say that you stalked me. I did not know that at all.
That's so funny.
I'll tell you, like if I see a person of color at a conference, I'll be like, "Hi, who are you? Do you write? Join our group." Thank you.
Or on social media.
Like yes, so I stalked you. I stalked you, so we stalked each other.
But that's how we actually first met, and then I let you forget about that because it was not.
She let some time pass to cool things off.
Right, not necessarily the best way, but it's kind of like, what do I say? I don't know. Walk past again.
Now I will wave. It's all about easing into it.
It's so funny because now you have how many books out?
This is the third. Christmas Data Breach was the third, but they all came out this year in sort of a weird pandemic style.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah, you had them all written before.
I'm sorry.
You had them all written before this year.
I had the first two written first.
Okay, that's good at least.
And then this third one is actually the only one I wrote. This on contract.
Was it hard for you to write on contract?
Not really. I mean, I already it's a series.
It was easy.
It wasn't easy, but I already knew what the story was going to be, so it wasn't difficult to just sit down and do it because it was already outlined. I'm an outliner, so
there you go.
I just had to do it. Yeah,
nice. And then you have a psychological suspense that came out.
Yeah. That one is actually
Kia
D. Richards. Yeah. That one was actually I wrote before any of the three, so it's sort of kind of all snowball. When it started to all work out for me,
that's great.
I think that's inspiring because I think so many writers have books they put in the drawer, they call it, and so you never know when the drawer book will be published. So,
and that's exactly how that one got published. It was I wrote it and no one was interested in it whatsoever. And then Simon & Schuster's Digital First had an open call. And I was like, well, nobody else wants it. Worst that can happen is it's just another rejection. So I sent it out and they liked it.
That's great.
Your story is amazing.
Yeah, you have to be persistent. That's so fantastic. So what's your reco?
My recommendation is Never Saw Me Coming. I my Kindle flipped it, but it is so good. It's so great. It's so wonderful. And I actually I'm at my mom's house right now, so I have the book, but I didn't bring it with me. but it's really great. So
It's
Yeah.
about students who are all psychopaths at a college,
it's about
right?
this study
As
that's
things go.
being done. I do like the serial killer thriller. So it's about this study done by this college group, college professor, doing a research study, and there's 5 or 6 psychopaths in the study.
It's a great concept.
Yeah, it
I've
is.
heard,
Yeah.
like I think last time Yaz suggested it, and so it's amazing, and I think
It's
it's
really
well.
good.
It's really cool for Vera. So it's really cool.
Yeah,
So.
it is very good, very good.
Nice. So thanks for
Yeah,
having
this was great.
me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks
This
for
is
inviting
so great
me.
to chat with you. And next time, if I see you walking by, a lot of times I'll know that you want to chat.
Anyone now?
I'm an introvert. That's how I get. You think I'm stalking you and I'm crazy, or you think, oh, she wants to say hi. She just
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Assume the best.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks, Kia.
Bye, Kia. Oh my God, I'm so excited for the next guest.
Yes, me too.
Are you ready? The one and only Sujata Massey.
Here she is.
Here.
Ooh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was just carried away because I remember that very malice domestic. I didn't know Kia, but I remember Kellye was saying that, oh, I'm sorry, somebody's barking.
Oh, it's okay.
It's okay.
I don't even know where they are, but the microphone picks
It's
it
a
up.
pet. It's a pet friendly event.
Yeah.
We got that already.
Daisy. Okay. Yeah, I remember you saying, I'm just grabbing people and asking them, do you write?
I think I met Cheryl Head that way. And that was the thing. That was the first Primaries of Color event we did at Malice. You were there, Gigi, I think Valerie Burns, Cheryl Head. And I was just like, if I saw
Naomi.
Color, Naomi, I was like, come. Join us.
Join us.
We had our first little meeting. Oh, see, we have cats and
And
dogs.
this one is, here's the Zoom bomber. So it's going to help me do my work. If I keep her under my thumb, it'll be better.
So, yeah, Mia was there too. So we had that was the first one ever. So Sujata is like one of the reasons why we decided to start the group.
Oh, well, no, it was just, there were so few of us.
Exactly. It was 6 people.
Before CWoC came along, Eleanor Taylor Bland was gathering people together. And I mean, we'd be lucky if there were 5 of us at a convention. So now you're talking more than 300 people. And it's just wonderful. The advice that I've heard during this, this podcast, this video session, the recos.
Don't forget the recos. Yeah, and you're such an active member too, and you're, I think like we were saying before.
People.
Yeah, always boosting people, always being supportive. So it's so great. And it's such a vibrant list. It doesn't go quiet, which I appreciate. Like there's always something new, good news, or something exciting. What are you going to read from?
Well, I write a mystery series that's set in 1920s India, and it stars this young woman, Praveen Mistry, who is the first woman lawyer in her city. And so in the 3rd book, which came out this year, it's called The Bombay Prince. I'll show you the cover.
It's very good.
So it forms around this true event, which was the Prince of Wales, Edward VIII, when he was 27 years old. Oh, Daisy.
Doesn't like Edward.
He doesn't like the colonialism.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what she thinks is going on. Okay.
She wants to join the party. She
Yeah.
knows it's the coolest place to be.
Okay, so there was a parade where he arrived in India, and it set off like 4 months of rioting. And that really, truly happened. And what I do in my novel is I imagine something happening when he arrives that's a little bit different. So I'm going to start and just picture yourself that you're at a parade in 1921, sitting with your college friends.
I hope Daisy likes it.
She better like it. Okay. The prince is nearby, Dean Gupta bellowed from the top row. Stand up. Stand up, stand up. The call was repeated all along the viewing stand by teachers and students. Praveen stood up too. Rising was an acknowledgement of the importance of the occasion, and participating would avoid bringing potential controversy for her friend Alice with her employer. However, Praveen didn't take out her handkerchief to wave because that gesture seemed too adoring. She glanced at Alice, who was painstakingly focusing the opera glasses Praveen had handed her. Alice said, "There they are. The Prince of Wales, Lord Reading, and Sir George Lloyd. Who else wants a look?" Praveen did not need the opera glasses to notice the young royal, who seemed more intent on chatting with the viceroy and governor than waving back at the spectators. The crown prince was only 27 years old. Perhaps he felt cowed by the viceroy and governor, who were much older, and he felt he had to give them his full attention rather than interact with the public. But it reminded her of what she'd said to Mustafa. Edward was no Prince of Bombay. "May I?" Miss Taboo eagerly took the binoculars. As she focused, her mouth gaped. "I see him, our future King Emperor. He has the loveliest smile. He looks near enough to kiss," a mischievous boy shouted from the row behind them, and there was more uproarious laughter. "Stop it! You're undisciplined and rude," thundered Mr. Gupta. And the next moment, above the cheers, a new male voice shouted, "Empire must die! Empire must die!" The screaming was in front of her, down on the road. A short young man dressed in a blinding white kurta rushed behind the prince's carriage, hands outstretched as if to grab it. Shouts arose from viewers in the stands and police along the road. Where had he come from, Praveen wondered. Just as quickly as he'd appeared, he vanished inside a thicket of soldiers and police. The prince's carriage moved along with none of the important men inside looking behind them. It was as if they hadn't noticed the man who tried to stop the prince's journey. In the Woodburn College viewing stand, all decorum was gone. Most of the male students were scrambling to get down to ground level, Mr. Gupta right behind. As Praveen glanced into the teacher's face, she saw tears behind his glasses. He understood the gravity of the situation and probably knew the young man involved. On the street, Principal Atherton was standing up, and the teachers near him closed in to make a tight circle, keeping their conversation private. This reaction, combined with those of Mr. Gupta and the other students, made it apparent the protester was known to them. Dear God, Alice put her face in her hands. Why would Dinesh do that? He could be expelled, said a girl on Praveen's left. Expulsion is nothing compared to what the police will do to him, a student named Lalita shot back. Oh, he shouldn't have. The prince and viceroy didn't even notice. Dinesh. Praveen felt a shock of recognition. Franny had confided that someone named Dinesh was the most outspoken member of the student union. Praveen elbowed Alice. Do you know who this Dinesh is? Dinesh Apte is a third-year student, one of the best in advanced geometry. Alice stood up using the advantage of the platform and her height to look over the crowd. What are those brutes doing to him? Miss Taboo, I need the binoculars. Alice focused the binoculars and Praveen climbed higher in the empty stand to obtain her own view. Her stomach clenched as she saw police waving lathis at the students trying to break their knot. But then the crowd parted. Praveen saw Dinesh in the grip of three soldiers who held firm to his thin arms and the back of his neck. Blood stained the boy's face, but he held it high as he was propelled along the edge of the parade route. Kennedy Seaface Road was wide open because most of the photographers and reporters had kept pace with the slow-moving royal carriage. This made Praveen even more worried. Not only had the newspapermen missed the students' protest, they also hadn't seen the instant savage takedown by the soldiers and police. Dinesh could disappear and nobody would be held accountable. This is unforgivable. Miss Taboo had retrieved her handkerchief and was using it to wipe her perspiring face. Our college has disrespected the crown prince. And what a tragedy that the boy is local. His family's reputation will be ruined. Praveen's mind was not on reputation. It was what would happen next for Dinesh. She remembered Frenny complaining about the boy's mockery. It sounded like he'd been absolutely horrible to her. But would it create a conflict of interest to offer him her own assistance? Praveen ran through the arguments. Frenny had not signed any contracts. She wasn't a mystery law client. So Praveen decided to get close enough to Dinesh Apte to witness his treatment by the police and caution him not to answer questions without a lawyer present. She could even ask if he wanted a referral. Her dilemma resolved, she came down from the high bench to stand next to Alice, who handed back the binoculars. What horrible thing to witness. Here you go. Thank you. She fitted the binoculars back into her legal briefcase. I must leave. Alice's face was anxious. You're going to try to intervene, aren't you? Praveen nodded. I want to make sure they don't kill him. I'd go with you if I could, but Mr. Atherton has called for teachers to guide the students back inside the college. Will you please be careful? Very careful. I'm only going to observe. Praveen made her way down the spectator stand. Walking as rapidly as her sari would allow, she tried to forget what her father had said about not becoming involved with protesters. She was certain that if Jamshedji had seen the intensity of the police reaction, he would have done what she was about to attempt.
Good work. Thank you so much.
And I apologize for having the noisiest house in the podcast.
I was looking over and I was like, did Daisy take something out?
Yeah.
And now, yes, she did. So anyway, they're probably going to come back in, so don't take too long with me.
Maybe she wants to read next. I don't know.
You said Daisy's a new co-host.
We need a dog mystery. We need somebody to be doing a dog mystery in this group. You know, we do everything.
I feel like
yeah,
be a dog mystery. Mm-hmm. I know. Valerie Burns has dog mystery. Her books are
she has dogs. Yeah, she's good.
So
that was. Go ahead.
I was just going to talk about how amazing Sujata is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just in awe.
If you guys don't know Sujata Massey, she's like she mentioned Eleanor Taylor Bryan. She's been putting out amazing books for
a veteran, an old timer. Since my first book came out in 97, so it is a pretty long time. I was a child author.
Like I was 5 years old.
Born with a book in your hand.
Writing the books, and how was it? Must have been so different back then, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, and it was just there were not only was it that there were not a lot of writers of color, but I write books set in different countries,
right?
And there was a belief at the time that the only countries that publishers could make money publishing books about were U.S., the UK, maybe Italy and France, and that was it. And so it was, and I heard that kind of talk at conventions, so it was really hard. And I thought, forget India, forget India. But I had spent time in Japan. And so that was my first series was set in Japan. And I think the only reason that I was able to get that published was there'd been somebody before me, Laura Jo Rowland, who had written mystery set in medieval Japan that had been successful. So she was really a big door opener for Asian set mysteries. Mm-hmm. And she's still writing, but now she's writing, I think set in Britain, I think. So, write what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you've had the idea for the Praveen books, like you said, you had in 2008. Around that time, you had the idea.
Yeah, it was pretty late because I had started. First I did the Japan series, and then I took a break, and I decided I really wanted to write more about India, which is my own heritage, and also it had been that I was suddenly around all the parents and getting a lot of good, just getting a lot of wonderful knowledge from them and doing things.
Yeah, immortalizing those stories.
Yeah, so it was around that time, and so I was I wrote a standalone first, which is set in 1930s India, and that is called The Sleeping Dictionary. And out of the research I did for that book, that germ of the idea came to write a series about a woman lawyer in early 20th century India. And there actually were 2 women lawyers. So I've been able to research about them to,
That's amazing.
make it realistic.
Yeah, and then the Widows of Malabar Hill like pretty much won every award.
Yes.
It was not every award, but it was a good year. It was 4 awards.
Yeah, I have it written down.
2018.
The Agatha, the Lefty, the McCavity, and the Mary Higgins Clark Award, and you were not finalist for the Seamus.
Oh yeah.
She's like, I want to. That's goals.
That's
I forget. Like, oh, I was
forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I've been a finalist twice for the Harper Lee Legal Fiction Prize.
Oh, nice.
And there's a lot. There's always the books are good for that, and so it's like I'm still a bridesmaid on that one, but I'm
Maybe
hoping
next time. Yeah. Can you talk about what you're working on next, or?
Yes, it's another mystery featuring Perveen, and it's actually about reproductive rights. That Perveen is gets involved in trying to assist a woman who's been arrested on suspicion of abortion, and so there were all kinds of really strict rules around abortion and birth control and just sexuality in general that were codified by the British into law. So it's like exploring how could she help this person? And of course she has to use whatever the existing laws are, that to try to manage it. And in the midst of it, there's a murder. So, so in some ways it's like a classic whodunit, but in other ways it's very much a story about women's empowerment and how these women help each other get through this very difficult situation.
It sounds great and so
relevant.
Yeah,
excited. So.
Yeah, it's weird. You get an idea to work on it, and also that Naomi Hirahara's book Clark and Division was already one of the recos, and that is dealing with the situation of what it was like, in the 1940s. What was the situation then? So, and she certainly was working on that long before the laws changed.
Yeah,
that's true. And speaking of recos, what's your reco?
So I thought I would go the historical direction for you all. And so I'm going to do 2 authors. The first is a debut author, Patricia Raybon, who wrote a book that is called All That Is Secret. And it's set in 1920s Colorado, the Denver area. And it deals with the whole world of, Black people in Colorado. Some were cowboys, some were in the church. What was the whole situation? What were their lives like with, dealing in the situation with, there was a rising clan with political, political efforts, and that they were sort of getting in here and there. So it was a very different kind of clan than, what we know about now. So I really enjoyed that book. I recommended it to PBS Mystery, their masterpiece program, because I could just see it. It's a really visual novel where she talks all about everything from the landscape and the old shops to the fabulous clothing that the minister's wife wears. And, it's so beautiful. So I recommend that. And then the other thing is I want to make a general recommendation for this series by Ovidia Yu, which is all about, there's the names of trees in them. The first one I think was the Frangipani tree mystery. And the most recent one is the paperbark mystery. And they feature a young Chinese woman who has a leg damaged by polio, so she can't get married. Her name is Su Lin. And she works as an assistant detective or assistant to a private detective who happens to be a British man, because this is British controlled Singapore. And she's really, they're just really wonderful multicultural mysteries. And they also are, they're full of all the food and the atmosphere.
That's great.
And so if you can't travel to Singapore now, you can with those books.
Nice. Thank
That's
you so
fantastic.
much, Sujata, for joining us and for just gracing us with your presence. And Daisy, thank you.
Yo,
Daisy.
Yes, thanks,
I
Daisy.
apologize for
So good to
that.
see you.
need.
It's the
It was-
microphone makes it all the worse.
No, it was fine. It was fun. It made the evening fun.
Well, we didn't know it was a suspense. We didn't know we could drown out the whole story.
Yeah, it kept us
Also,
on
when
the edge.
when the bang happened and you looked over, I was like, "Uh-oh, is Daisy gonna get in trouble?"
Yeah, what's Daisy doing over there?
Well, like now she's disappeared.
She
Yeah,
knows she's in
the
trouble.
moment's gone. But thanks for
Yeah.
joining us. This is always
Yeah,
a treat,
thank
and it's
you.
always good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Nice
Take
to
care.
know.
Bye, everyone.
Yay, we're gonna end it.
All right, we're closing out strong.
too.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Who's up?
Cate
Kate.
Holahan.
Hi, Kate.
Prince extraordinaire.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thanks.
Oh,
guys.
thanks for joining us. It's always
Um,
good to see you.
Kate was saying how she's helping her kids with homework, and so Marla said we should ask her some fraction questions. So we're gonna.
Yeah, what's your favorite fraction?
I know the new math is hurting.
It's so
me.
weird. Yeah, my kid's in kindergarten, and we're just starting to deal with it. So I can only imagine how it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one in middle school and one in fourth grade, and it's like they show and they're like, well, you do it this way, and you cross it, and then you draw a picture, and then I'm like,
I'm like, just count on your hands, and that'll get you there.
I blocked this out for a reason.
Yeah. What are you going to read from?
So I'm going to read from my last Her Three Lives, which was
Yay.
it was the first time I'm half Jamaican. It was the first time I had a Jamaican character. So her and her mom. So I'm going to read from chapter 2, and here I go.
Great.
Pride goeth before destruction. The proverb was one of Abigail Thompson's favorites. Growing up, Jade had heard her mother mutter it many a time after hearing that misfortune had befallen a seemingly upstanding individual. To her mom's credit, Abigail never uttered it with the smug satisfaction of some of the other churchwomen, as though she'd personally warned the poor soul that his luck would change if he didn't show God more gratitude. She tended to say it in the same tenor as an apology. Abigail regretted that heaven's standards were so impossible, but it wasn't for men to judge the laws of the Lord. The Savior didn't punish without reason. If tragedy struck a decent family, then in Abigail's mind, Jesus must have determined them insufficiently thankful for their blessings. Jade had little use for Proverbs 16:18 or any other biblical victim blaming. As far as she was concerned, the universe meted out vengeance with the precision of an atomic bomb. Storms leveled cities, men and women were murdered, raped, babies died in utero. There were myriad reasons, and chief among them was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But prayer, or lack thereof, wasn't one. She'd learned that lesson at age 7 when she'd still been a true believer, and she was certain that what had happened a week earlier had nothing to do with the divine or justice. There'd be no convincing Abigail of that, though. Jade could feel her mother's disapproving gaze boring into her back as she draped a bright orange cloth over the kitchen table. In her peripheral vision, she could see Abigail's pursed lips above the newspaper held roughly in her hands. Part of Jade wanted to tell her mother that she had no right to judge at the moment. Abigail was not the one with a fiancé in the hospital. Abigail had not been attacked. But Jade had long learned that fighting with a woman who believed in preordination was pointless. Jade slipped into the neighboring kitchen. She grabbed a white plate from the cupboard and brought it beside the still sizzling cast iron skillet. The air was saturated with the smells of frying oil and fish, reminding her of Lenten Fridays as a child. She grabbed a spatula from a basket beside the stove and slipped it under the small snapper and transferred the fish to her plate. Scales shone pink around the snapper's gelatinous eye and glowering mouth. Jade's stomach twisted with sudden revulsion. She pulled back the fridge door and dipped her head inside, sucking in the cold air to settle her stomach. Ever since the attack, the weirdest things set off waves of nausea. Jade pressed the heel of her hand into her flat stomach until the feeling subsided. She then yanked the pickling jar from the fridge's top shelf and shut the door. Twisting off the metal lid released the trapped fumes of fermenting Scotch bonnet peppers. Jade's eyes watered as she grabbed a spoon from a drawer beside the stove and scooped out several slices of carrots, bell peppers, and ginger root, spreading them like jam across the top of the fish. Even with her blurred vision, she could tell the plate would look pretty on the orange backdrop. She carried her culinary painting to the table and placed it in the center of the fabric, taking a moment to admire how the cloth's color highlighted the carrots atop the fish. She returned to the kitchen for a fork and a knife, a deep purple napkin, and the flowers that she intended to take to the hospital later, a lavish arrangement with 2 bird of paradise blooms emerging from a nest of violet orchids. As she staged the area around the plate, Jade could feel her mother's anger intensifying, heating the air between them like a blast from an opened oven. She tried to ignore it, focusing only on the still life framed in her iPhone screen and the sumptuousness of the food at the photo's center. The pictures looked appetizing, although a tad too brassy thanks to the afternoon light streaming through her mother's west-facing window. The right filter would tone down the color. Jade grabbed the fork and carefully peeled a morsel off the fish's side. She stabbed it along with a bright yellow pepper and then brought the lot up to her coral-painted mouth, smiling as if unaware of the cell phone camera clicking in her extended left hand. Her mother jostled the newspaper. "Sweetheart, for shame." Jade placed the bite back on the plate. "It's been nearly a week. If I don't put up a post soon, I'll lose followers." "Lose them then." The paper smacked against the table. "Your husband-to-be is in a coma." Abigail leaned forward in her seat, thick biceps bulging over her folded hands, an arm wrestler waiting for a challenger. Her hair was pulled off her face in a low ponytail. The style, coupled with the fact that Abigail lacked a single wrinkle on her walnut skin, made her appear to be Jade's older peer rather than her parent. Jade placed her phone on the table. "You don't think I know where he is?" Abigail stiffened. Jade reminded herself of the respect due the woman who had birthed and raised her alone, regardless of how absurdly judgmental she might be acting. She lowered her voice. "I've been there plenty since it happened. Greg doesn't know that, though. He's not responsive, and he may never become so. You want me to hold a round-the-clock vigil until the doctors say it's time to make a decision?" Jade's eyes watered more, a drizzle threatening a true shower. She pushed the pepper-covered fish farther from her face. "I can't lose my livelihood, too." Her speech did little to soften her mother's expression. Abigail gestured toward the plate. "So you're going to what? Share a picture of you smiling beside an escovitch fish?" Her mother's accent, muted from 4 decades in Brooklyn, became more prominent when she was annoyed. Abigail would have slipped into a Jamaican patois, Jade bet, had the recent home invasion not demanded some extra show of sympathy for her child. Abigail Thompson would never see the blog as anything other than her daughter's indulgence. As a nurse, her mom believed that the value one provided others should be physically measurable, obvious in the reduced fever of the infected patient or the stitched arm of the fall victim. Jade provided enjoyment calculated by an amorphous formula involving clicks and time spent on pages. Clicks could add up to real money, though. The blog brought in $6,000 a month in advertising, enough to support her as she continued to work out how a BFA in design could yield steady contract work. In her mother's defense, Jade supposed that she downplayed the site's importance in the beginning, dismissing it as a hobby. In truth, Jade had always hoped to build an audience. When she'd installed the advertising widget on her site, she'd silently planned to gain enough of a following to pay off her student loans, a sum that had remained undented by bartending and sporadic modeling gigs. Jade suspected that her mother secretly thought the whole enterprise sinful, albeit in a venial fashion. In her mother's eyes, Life in Color profited off of bragging and frivolity. It probably encouraged idolatry by diverting attention from God to home decor and other vain pursuits. "You honestly think telling the world about your lunch is a good use of your time when your fiancé is eating from a tube?" The word stung. Fresh tears welled in Jade's eyes, along with a recent image of Greg, his head bandaged and his neck braced. A plastic tube ran into his open mouth beneath thick white tape, hiding his thin lips. His skin, always pale, had the powdery appearance of albinism. Jade glanced at the graying fish on the plate. Whatever morsel of hunger she felt disintegrated. "Why don't you have it? I can't eat." She started toward the front door. Abigail was wrong to criticize her. Even the Bible didn't contain a playbook for how she was supposed to respond to her situation. Her fiancé wasn't dead. He was comatose. Donning a black dress and wailing would be putting the hearse before the horse. And why should she do that? Because her mother came from a tradition that urged public displays of grief rather than stiff upper lips? "Jade, wait." She wanted to head through the door and slam it behind her, let the building shake with her fury. But she'd been raised to come when her mother called or face the consequences. She froze in the hallway beyond the kitchen, preserving a little dignity by refusing to retreat. "Your phone is ringing. It may be the hospital." So I'll stop there. That's halfway through the chapter. And
That was great.
That was juicy. I love that book. I got
Yes.
to read it earlier this year. I love the mom character. She's so frustratingly a mom. She's not. Is she based on your mom?
Not
Okay. Okay, I was like, let me ask before I.
My mom could watch it. No,
She loves the character.
my mom's not as religious. She's more based on like a composite of some people in my family. My mom had her own ways of guilting you into making sure you followed the rules, but religion really wasn't one of them.
Do you let your family read the book? Do they read the books?
I do, and you know, it's it's funny because everyone always thinks characters are based on them, right?
Always.
Like,
Yeah.
and meanwhile you're sitting there like, no, that's not you, that's her.
Yeah, that's somebody else. Yeah.
Remember when they think like, oh, the amazing person's obviously based on me. You're like, no.
That's
No.
right. It's true. What I find I do, I don't know if you guys do this, is I will take like someone's job that I'm familiar with because they're a friend and they talk a lot about it, and then someone else's, fears, and someone else's like personality quirk, and then you kind of build your own person as an amalgamation.
Yeah, it's always a blend. Yeah, it's never one for one. I made the mistake of telling my best man that a character was him, and he got really upset when he realized that he died in a car explosion. Like, it wasn't anything personal. It's just like,
He's
you just
how
take
dare
people.
you?
Yeah, we're still friends.
It's not prophetic.
Yeah, never tell people it's who they are in the book.
Always the hero.
So, Cate, you do our external newsletter, and you're one of our library liaisons at Crime Writers of Color, which is a huge help to the org. Can you just talk a little bit about that? What it's been like for you, or?
Well, yes, it's been so great. I wish I had more to do. With the library, I think I kind of ran the Zoom from behind the scenes, but it was really
we had an amazing panel.
Yeah,
and it was so interesting to hear. You forget how much libraries mean to book sales and what they can do for promotion. And I think sometimes we're so focused on, social media and bookstores and Amazon rankings that you kind of forget about your local library. And so
super important.
It's a great resource. So
yeah.
And then also, so Her Three Lives is described as like Gaslight Goes High Tech. Where'd you get the idea from?
Yeah, well, it's funny because the story is really how technology delivers some information, and we think we might have more perfect information, but it doesn't. And so I had this idea when there were all those doorbell cameras, and people started posting on these neighborhood sites. Like they would see like a black guy running down the street, and they'd be like, "Oh, they're casing the neighborhood," and the guy's like jogging, right? And so I had this idea of, well, what does it do if you have, in this case, there's a home invasion and the husband is brain injured, and he installs all these cameras ostensibly to keep their house safe, and ends up kind of inadvertently spying on his wife or his fiance at the time, and then starts thinking that she had something to do with it. And so that was kind of the genesis of it, is thinking, well, you have all these people, because they're not actually interacting in ways that we would consider more normal, that it's through these screens, that it allows a lot of stereotypes to kind of come to the fore, and it allows people to do things and say things that they wouldn't if they were interacting in a more personal fashion.
Yeah.
So I guess, I write from anxiety, so it makes me it's like,
so you're saying you don't have a Ring camera in your house. There's no Ring camera in your house.
We're all just,
Oh, no, we're all living in Zoom. Yeah, no, it's a great book, and it's I also wanted to ask you about this Audible thing, which I thought was such a cool announcement. And I don't know how far along you all are, but if you could talk a little bit about it.
Oh, I'm so happy to. Yes, we have. So I'm writing a book. Well, the book's written because it comes out in April. It's Vanessa Lilly, Kimberly Bell, and Lane Fargo.
It's a great crew.
It is a great crew. And so it's young rich widows. And the idea of it is that you have these 4 women who are very, very different. And it's set in 1985. Their husbands are all partners in a law firm that has some shady dealings. And the husbands are on a private plane coming back to Rhode Island, and it explodes. And so the women have to find out, what was this legal deal going on? What was happening? Why were their husbands? Well, first they have to figure out if it was an accident or if it was murder, and then, what happened and are they next? And my character in it, Justine, is a mixed woman, black and white. It's kind of located to Providence because her husband's there. And so she's struggling to kind of figure out how to operate in what's a pretty segregated society there in Providence in 1985.
Yeah.
Also, one of the things she uncovers is that the primarily African-American section of Providence is suffering from seeming like an illness that is getting a lot of kids particularly sick, and that's somewhat related to what goes on. So,
I just have to always like commend you because I remember like one time you said to me like I'm a woman of color who always writes women of color, and that's something we don't really see a lot in the domestic suspense and psychological suspense. And so I just really appreciate that you've been opening these doors for us for years at this point. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just happy that I actually have people on my covers now that are reflective.
Like, you're not like in big, you're like, yeah, I love that cover.
No, I know that you can't tell from the cover.
Well, thanks for joining us. This has been good, but we won't let you escape without sharing your reco.
Your hashtag reco.
Yeah.
Hashtag reco.
So I wanted to promote a wonderful series by Alexa Gordon. Hold on, Alexia. Let me. I want to just pull it up here on my phone because I have the Kindle. Her latest is Fatality in F.
Yay, Alexia.
Alexia's great.
Alexia's great, and I love her protagonist. I read 3 of the books so far, and she's just Gethsemane is this is a concert musician, professional musician who finds herself in Ireland, and she has a talent for communing with spirits, a talent that she doesn't necessarily even want to have because these spirits. And I love it. I mean, the protagonist is sarcastic and witty and just a cool amateur sleuth. And also I personally love a good ghost story because I believe in them because I do. So whenever I'm like, that could totally happen.
Yeah. I love that.
You have to write a ghost story.
Well, Cate, thanks for joining us. It's always a treat to see everyone, and you gave such a great reading, and it's great having you at the event.
And an amazing event. I really
Exactly.
enjoyed this. We always have so much fun, Alex, and we
Yeah.
always have amazing people. So it's me.
Bye, Cate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, McKenna.
Hi. So I've been sitting back and listening, and oh my gosh, I think this was the best one yet.
I think so too.
Yay, the bar.
That was so great.
We're not going to get fired yet, Kellye.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Robert and Daisy and
Robert
Obi.
and Daisy both gave you a run for your money.
I mean, I would replace myself with a small dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert's not getting my job. Sorry, Robert.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't think of a better way to wrap up a year of hundreds of virtual events.
You guys are amazing.
You guys are so awesome.
Because I think, especially with the pandemic, we were all as authors just so scared of like how are we going to promote, how are we going to share our stories, and for you guys, like you guys jumped in so quickly. Because I think I did an event with you guys, like one of the first ones, like right at the beginning of the pandemic. With
We
Rachel
were doing them in April 2020. Yeah,
it's like a foundational thing.
Yeah, our all of our in-store events, we basically just, to use the well overused phrase at this point, pivoted to virtual very, very quickly because we wanted to make sure that everyone who was scheduled still had a platform. So yeah, we did it early, and now we've done it often.
Yeah, and you do it so well. You do it so well.
Well, thank you. You guys also have been flawless this evening. So thanks to all of the guest authors. I'm not going to bring everyone back on. They're all still here in the studio, but everyone did a wonderful job. And is there anything you guys wanted to say before we wrap up for the evening?
I think we can do a quick, no pressure, Kellye. We can give our 2021 recos.
Sure. I'm going to go quickly. I'm going to choose Murder by Past by Delia Pitts, who is
so good
author, also one of our volunteers. This is the Ross Agency mystery. I want to say it's maybe like 4 or 5, and it's really cool. It's about this guy named Rook who kind of comes and joins this agency. And in this one, his ex-wife comes back, and so it's kind of, you get some personal elements for him. So definitely check this out. And she has, I think, another one coming out in February too. So
awesome. My choice is These Toxic Things by Rachel Housel Hall, and it's about a digital archaeologist, and just it's such an interesting career. And Rachel's one of my favorite writers, and I'm
people. Period.
Yeah, just one of the best people in this industry. Just so talented. I also am lucky enough to read the one that's coming out later this year, We Lie Here, which is fantastic.
Our last event, I guilted her into sending me a copy.
Yes,
so I have a copy because I guilted her at the last one.
So yeah, and I also want to give a shout to Yasmin Ango's Her Name Is Night, which is so fun, and she's a fantastic writer. It's her debut, and she won the Eleanor Taylor Bland Award when I was a judge, and I've just kind of seen the novel evolve and become this huge thing. So it's been nice to watch.
Yeah, so definitely check out Primaries of Color, our books page. We have more recent releases. We have releases by ethnic group, also by genre. Check out the podcast that Robert does, because he dives in even deeper than we do. But he's not going to take our job here. He does a great job on his thing.
Yes, keep it separate.
Can I do a reco? Can I do a
Yes,
reco?
please do. Please do.
All right. So my favorite book too, our series now to hand sell, and it's one of my all-time favorite series, is the Nanette Hayes series by Charlotte Carter, which Vintage has just reprinted with the, like, these killer covers. And so she's a jazz saxophonist, busker in Harlem, and then the first one gets involved in a murder investigation, and the second one, so the first one's Rhode Island Red, the second one's Coco Vin, it's in Paris, and it's maybe my favorite. They're full of jazz and music, and it's such a great series. So definitely check those.
I read them a long time ago, and
me too.
An original Charlotte Carter.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
reread them in a while.
reread them. Yeah,
I have talked about them for so many years, and they haven't been in print for us to hand sell. And so John, as soon as they had digital galleys for the reprints, he read all 3 in a row, and he was like, "Oh yeah, McKenna was right. These are amazing."
This is it. Yeah.
So McKenna's always right, John.
She's always right. Yeah,
I am with
the
this
rule.
one. I am with this one. So I love those Charlotte Carter books. Anyway,
Thanks again for having us. This is always a treat.
Always a pleasure.
Hopefully we'll see you in 2022, McKenna.
Yes.
Absolutely. We would not miss it. I love that we're doing this. Is it every other month?
Yeah,
every other month.
Yeah, every other month.
That's what John told us.
we'll just keep it going. I can't wait. So anyway, happy holidays to everyone. Thanks to everyone for watching.
Happy holidays.
Fun regular faces on here, and thanks to you, Alex and Kellye, for putting on such a great event.
Thank you.
Thanks
This
to
was a
the
blast.
authors. Thank you, Kia.
Yes, thanks to the
Sujata
readers.
and Robert and Mia and Kate and Marla. So thank you guys. And to
Thank
Daisy
you, Kellye.
and Obi. Daisy and Obi. Oh, sorry. And I guess thanks to Alex.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
All right, I'm sending us all off. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye.